This is episode number 213 of the A Bar Above podcast. And in this episode, we are going to have a candid conversation about diversity and inclusion in craft bars. It's something I know that we need a lot more of, and hoping that we can start this conversation and have a little fun along the way. Stay tuned. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Bar Above podcast. So today we have a special guest, somebody I cannot believe I have not crossed paths with up until this moment, but I'm very excited to have on with us the drinking coach, Tiffanie Barriere. How are you doing, Tiffanie?
I'm fantastic. I'm so happy to meet you and hang out.
Yeah, I am very, very excited as well. And I was just mentioning earlier that I love your Instagram. I think it's fantastic and it's just full of energy and life. So I am very excited to just have a conversation with you and get to know you a little bit better.
Let's do this.
Perfect. So the focus of today's episode is going to be on equality and diversity in the bartending environment. And based off of my experience, just one data point, it's not a very diverse culture we have behind the bar. So I'd like to kind of open up that conversation a little bit and really kind of have a candid conversation about diversity in craft bars, in bartending in general. So like I said, I don't think we could have a better person to have this conversation with than you. So definitely thank you for being here. So to kind of get your backstory, first of all, your handle on Instagram is the drinking coach, and that's what you get. That's kind of your persona, right? Your industry handle.
Yeah, the drinking coach. She's a feisty little thing. She's smart and very personable. I am too the drinking coach, but I watch the drinking coach do her thing, and it's exciting. People love to drink, and they don't always know what to do, Right. And I'm talking about the consumer. Menus read like, Chinese. They're just, the verbiage is all over.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also so much curiosity. So I've just gathered the fact that I want to coach you, help you out. I mean, I'm already a bartender, being your psychiatrist and your friend. And we are making an exchange, but why not exchange some facts there? And so that's what the drinking coach does, and that's what she's here for.
Nice. I love it. So kind of backtracking, how did you get started in the industry? What got you involved in the first place?
Wow. I started drinking, hands down. I started drinking. There's no Cinderella story here. I also grew up in a drinking family in Louisiana and Texas. And so we always had the door open, the garage. We've always had lots of food and drink. And I just would watch my family drink and say, I cannot wait to feel like they're feeling. They're having so much fun. And I had to be a part of it. So bring that into school and kind of in between college and real life and going, what do I want to do? And the bar just seemed like a really comfortable place. And it was, and it is. And I started making cocktails as a bartender, and I just could not stop. I love the engagement. I love the people. Of course, the money was quick and fast, and I loved the bottles behind me. They were just all uncovered with great stories. And I just kept going. You find out there's levels and everything. So I started studying and traveling and still drinking and just really learning, what it is to embody the liquid culture. And it's taken me beyond my wildest dreams.
That's amazing. And I think that's one of the things that really fascinated me about the spirits industry in general is when we look on a back bar, every bottle is a history lesson, right? It is, especially some of the older spirits like chartreuse and, some of the other ones from Europe is like, there is a long history that we just know the tip of the iceberg on. So it always fascinated me to kind of dig back and learn more about the spirits in general. And so you found a really good watering hole to be at for a while, and you won Best Bar in the World. Which one was that one again?
Just a little small bar here in Atlanta, Georgia. It's called One Flew South. We're located in the airport, the world's largest airport in the world. And I have the nerve to have the #1 cocktail bar in that largest airport in the world. Insanity, ambitious, passion, fun. The stories are, I mean, another book has to come out with the stories, but One Flew South is my heartbeat, and it has raised me to be who I am now.
I feel like that's a special breed of bartender that can really just lean into an airport bar, because like on a day-to-day, like as a bartender, you hear amazing stories. You get to interact with a lot of people, but in an airport bar, I imagine that's only like to the next level. Like you're having so many people coming through your doors with such great stories. It's got to be fun.
Everything that you're imagining, times that by 10. Like, ridiculous. The story, airports are fun. For some people, they suck, but airports can be really exciting. You never know what's going to happen. And so those stories and those people, the experience was unlike no other. And we honestly would always say, we're not an airport bar. We happen to be a real bar with an airport outside of us.
Nice. I love it. So what motivated you to kind of get into the advocacy side of the industry?
I saw a missing link.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize I saw the missing link. I just knew that I was standing out, not because I don't have hair on my head, but I was standing out. I started to, as a bar lead and an influencer at the time in that space. I, of course, competed and traveled, and I just noticed that I was quite lonely. There wasn't a lot of people like me on these levels, or even being seen in publications. And I thought, well, people keep asking me all these questions, and I keep being interviewed for the work that I'm doing. And it got to the point, honestly, Chris, where I was being interviewed so much for One Flew South and all the work we were doing that I just got annoyed and said, there's other people like me. There are a lot of other bartenders of different nationalities and gender, and let me introduce you to them, because I'm tired of seeing my own self being interviewed, and I just continue to keep that momentum up to always showcase other people, and make sure that they know, that there is space for all of us, and here I am advocating.
That's amazing. And from my understanding, I read through your bio. You're actually part of many different panels and many different boards because of your work on the advocacy side. Can you describe some of the panels that you sit on?
Yeah, if I can call them out. James Beard Beverage Advisory Board, La Dame Escoffier, Atlanta, Dames Hall of Fame, Tales of the Cocktail Grants Committee, BCB, Brooklyn, Education Committee. I think that's it that I can think of. Those are popping incredible. Out right now.
You are a busy lady.
Oh my God, it's ridiculous.
So thank you again for taking the time here. That's incredible. So within the work that you've done on the advocacy side here, and we're talking kind of around diversity, have you seen, besides your programs, obviously, have you seen some bars that really do this well, that are just kind of like icons in the diversity, and really wrapping their head around diversity and making it just a beautiful part of their beverage program?
Wow, that is a fantastic question. The pandemic has taken away a lot of my attention when it comes to seeing who's doing it better, because we've been going through a lot in this country and our industry as far as inclusion, representation, presence, education. And so, especially with the movement that happened in 2020. So I can't call a lot of them out right now, but I do know Llama up in Brooklyn, Lynette's program is covered in diversity, a lot of Latin energy, a lot of South American energy. And I just love to see that along with the staffing. And I believe right now, what we're paying attention to is to see how much work is being seen and not just heard and typed. And so we're just keeping an eye out to see how inclusive you really are going to be, not performative, and really tie that into your program. I mean, every bottle behind the bar comes from somewhere. How come the cocktail menu can't be that way and your staffing can't be that way? So I have my eyes peeled, and, we've got a whole tribe that is open to having the conversation and just just opening the doors to say, hey, what are your thoughts on this kind of representation at the bar? And I do believe we're on our way currently.
That's really exciting. And kind of a follow-up question. I have a couple of follow-up questions because you hit on something I want to cover in just a second here. But when we talk about, bars that really embrace diversity and the ones that you're paying attention to and the people that are doing this really well, what do you think kind of sets them apart, like from a customer perspective, right? Because all that energy is going to come across. Like, what are some of the hallmarks of a bar that really kind of wraps their arms around diversity?
Well, for one, your staff, the visual, just your staffing, you look around and you're like, wow, everyone is so cool, because I think diversity is so cool. You look around and you're like, almost a guessing game. I wonder where they're from. And people who are working in this industry are so proud to be where they're from and promote that. And so I think, of course, hiring such a beautiful, colorful staff is important. But then on the menu, educating the menu the way chef educates their menu, and looking at the menu and saying, this is a South American cocktail. This is a French cocktail. This is a African cocktail, and really educating the guests on the menu. That's exciting too. And then the guests just get quite curious, and that gives your staff enough time to educate verbally and with taste. And I think that is such a great way to advocate for how much it matters to you that you're not a style of restaurant or bar. You are a restaurant and bar, and you encompass all of those things, because I believe us bartenders at one point, you want to have a style of a bar where you focus on tiki, or you're a champagne bar, or it's spritzy, or Amaros, or your thing. But all of those things that I just listed come from different parts of the world. So if we just continue to really push that, instead of it being one kind of program, a world program, that's what I'm wanting to see more. And I'm seeing a little bit of it here in Atlanta, and a few bars that are doing their thing.
That's super exciting. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's neat.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I want to ask you are, when we look at the industry, what are some of the barriers that we have for being a lot more inclusive? And I'm thinking more both from the kind of the bar owner or manager side, and also from the employee side that may be interested in becoming a bartender. Do you see any significant hurdles that kind of get in the way of being more inclusive?
Yeah, I think, again, to bring up that crazy, crazy pandemic, I think that we are right now reinventing the way bar ownership and employees are. Is there really a division? I mean, it is our ownership as an employee to be just as proud as the program and happy to work where you are. Of course, we're there to get money as well, but then for the owners to encourage that kind of energy and keep a nice, healthy space to feel like, hey, you come to work every day, you are a part of the family, you are a part of the heartbeat, you are a part of the program, literally.
Yeah.
And so I'm starting to see maybe people offer more incentives, saying, hey, if you work here, I mean, insurance, of course, that's a whole industry ball game that we discuss. But hey, if you're going to work here for about a year, we can cut you a said percentage, or always offering education perks, and really knowing what those managers are over in the corner talking about. Like, what is it they're talking about over there? Is it just schedules and menus, or is it about the business? And I'm seeing whispers of having that conversation in a full family gathering, staff included, to just hear what the troubles are. And for owners to really ask the employees, because they are on the ground with the guests, what do they want? What do the guests want? Because combining those two thoughts bring about great power, not just being owner employee, but we happening. And that just brings some trust, and it makes you not want to come to work, just go, I'm just here to get a check, but you understand the ins and out, because if you keep it going, the business keeps going, and it just kind of goes back and forth. And if you've got a nice, vibrant, diverse staff, then we're touching every community at this point. Ownership, service, love, family, it all just happens together.
Yeah. And
I hope I answered that.
You did. And I think you're just touching on so many different points that I would kind of want to dive a little bit deeper into. But I fully agree with you. Like the more you can get frontline staff involved with some big decisions in the company, the better it's going to be because they see the guests every single day. They have the feet on the ground perspective of what the customers actually want. And it almost seems like a disservice to your business to not get that information and get your employees involved in some bigger decisions. So I fully agree with you. Like having those conversations and involving everybody, it just makes a lot of sense from my perspective as well. Yeah, and this kind of ties into one of the other things that you mentioned too, and hopefully we can kind of touch on this a little bit, is you mentioned the performative aspect of diversity. This was something that I witnessed in my career as a bartender, is like you have a schedule, and within that schedule of employees, there should be a certain diverse makeup, and they have to look different. And for me, that just kind of felt gross, right? Like that's the essence of performative, right? Like we're checking boxes because, that's it. But how do you go from that to truly being inclusive and making people feel valued inside of that business? And that's a big question. I fully realize that. So I don't think we're gonna, solve the problem today on this episode. But I think starting the conversation and getting people to understand, maybe some people don't even understand that there's a difference, and that's its own conversation. But like, how do we get past that and like really start to include people in these big decisions?
Yeah, that's loaded, Chris, and it's been on my heart for a while. I'm consulting a space right now where we literally just had this conversation about mixing it up a tad. This is a difficult yet exciting time because to talk about inclusion and diversity at this state can get uncomfortable because diversity and inclusion have not been an issue. They haven't even been talked about, even seen in our lifestyle, let alone before our lifestyle. Hundreds of years this has gone by without being spoken on. So God, if I could only fix it. I really think it starts with transparency, and transparency is hard as hell. To be honest and open is just not easy for everyone. Sometimes it's very easy to some people. We're just now learning to get the tools to know how to have a tone with someone and respect boundaries and again, be honest, be honest to someone. I think that's the start. I know that's the start, and it's not going to be easy for everyone because we all have different characteristics and personalities. And so delivering what's great for the business has to come out honestly. But when the honesty comes out, we still have to have the ears open to hear the other side and understand how these two can come together, because the business could say, we have to have this. And the staff could say, but we don't have this, or we don't feel as, And so those conversations have to happen. Race, transparency, and inclusion. No one's having that with a cake and ice cream. Like, we're just not doing it. It's gotta come out really, really honest and factual. So, it's a tough one. We're just going to have to, I think our generation, I'm so happy to be a part of this generation. We're able to say something and have some backbone with it, and have some people behind us to say, that's what he said. Yep. That's what she said. That's what they said. We just don't have to say it in our own building and feel like, crap, I might get fired if I say this, or crap, if I tell my employee this, they're going to think that I'm racist, or I am, whatever. So we have more backbone and strength behind us, and we have a little bit of tools in the toolbox, a little bit of therapy, a little bit of social media. We have an outlet to really make sure that what we're saying and what we're feeling is valid.
Yeah, and it maybe you can talk a little bit about this, because it seems like within my generation, within my lifetime, the needle has definitely moved, and I can see the progress that we've made, being more inclusive and being more focused on equality. And that has been a hard fought battle over, the 46 years that I've been alive. I've seen it, and it has slowly started to move. but it seems like things are progressing. Like you're mentioning, we have new tools in our tool belt. We have better understanding. We understand more of what it means to be inclusive and respectful of different people's beliefs. But it hasn't always been that way. So it seems like over time, things change. And to understand where we are now is going to be very different from where we are in 5, 10, 20 years from now, right? Mm-hmm. So can you talk about some of the tools that are really applicable now in this environment of maybe, I'll frame out some context here, of an owner operator that wants to be more inclusive and wants to bring in maybe an underrepresented social group into their bar programs. Is there any tools that you would suggest or any ways that owner could bring in more people that might be in that community?
There are a lot, I'll say a few, I don't know them all by name, but there are a lot of organizations that really flip the coin from battered, abused, non-wealthy situations. And they have programs also that give you proper tools to be educated. I'm going to speak on therapies now, or therapy groups now that are within service industry organizations. We have a thing called the Giving Kitchen here. There's things like USBG that people kind of forget and get angry about, but there are tools inside of those organizations that aren't just there to, people think, take your money, but they're also there to have your back. Mm-hmm. There are brands that actually have great incentives that they offer a conversation, that offer some power tools, again, that everyone that's in this industry just isn't a bartender or just isn't a chef. They also have another trade within them. I laugh at social media often. It's not my thing. 41 years on this world, and I'm like, the social media thing, like, oh, but it actually, there's some helpful tools because you can speak. Right. And when you speak, people hear it, and then they hear it, and then they respond to it. And that has been a huge outlet for even smaller Facebook, Instagram groups, pockets of conversations that work on healing and standing for your rights or your space. Yeah. There's just so much to unpack. But if an owner was trying to think, how can I get this involved? How can I get my staff to be that way? It's a Google away. It's literally a Google away. And I can't pinpoint them all to say, hey, is there anyone that can help me to educate my staff or feel more inclusive? And I know some pretty heavy hitters. We'll throw out Jackie Summers' name right now, who is more than happy to show up and say, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it all. Or me, let's talk about it. Let's jump in there. Chris Cabrera, let's jump in there and talk about all of these things. And it doesn't have to be someone overly certified. They should just be experienced in life, because that's what we're really trying to do, to be more inclusive and transparent and open and honest. It doesn't take a PhD. It takes a little bit of experience. Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. That's really great. And one of the things that you mentioned, you're just like dropping little kernels everywhere, and I love it. One of the things you mentioned is that brands have some tools that really help support this conversation. And we don't need to go down the road of the tools, but I would love to hear about some of the brands that really kind of pop up on your radar as people or brands that support diversity and inclusion and having these conversations to gain momentum, because we'd love to support those brands. So if you have any that come to mind.
Yeah, off the top of my head, of course, we know Bacardi family loves to be all over the world when it comes to who they hire and how they represent. The portfolio is a beautiful spread. And so they do allow their employees to advocate and have incentives that mean a lot to them. So you're seeing a lot of the Latin community, the African community, the queer community You're seeing them have a chance to have a voice because they have a job there. Campari family, the same way, they do something quite similar. My good friends with Stoli, just waving that rainbow flag all day long, like just covering the grounds when it comes to representing for the queer community, with really focusing almost strictly on that community, and offering a really comfortable space, not only to be seen, but to be hired. There are queer people that are in transition that feel like they can't work in transition, or be seen or be themselves. So I love their incentive. We'll think about the near screen incentive with Fawn Weaver, and allocating and bringing up one of the first Black master distillers, and the programming that they focus on is not just Black. The programming focuses on entrepreneurship and leadership, because being a master distiller, we don't even talk about those guys. And so they really focus on the behind the scenes of the work that's done, and they really offer some really cool incentives and conversations within that group. And I really like it. I really love to see them go over and beyond the bottle and take a deep dive. The rum community, you already know, it's all about the storytelling. It's all about really sharing the narrative. And whether or not that incentive means a lot to our industry, it means a lot just to hear the other side of the story, because there's always two sides. Some say three, depending on what your grandma told you, but there's two sides of the story. And it's just really lovely to see the brand do a storytelling that really touches, it triggers your mind and go, oh my gosh, I can relate to that. And that relation to me is an incentive in its own, and pours a great dram.
That's awesome. Thank you very much for that list. Because I think it's really important, because the consumer may not see all these things, but when you're in the industry and you're a professional, you do see a lot of this stuff. You see the advocacy, and you see brands putting a lot of attention on these things. So I think spreading the word on who does a really good job is really helpful. So thank you very much. Now, I also know that you're a big history buff, if I'm not mistaken, when it comes to cocktails.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, is there a favorite? And you're a storyteller. You really appreciate a good story. So do you have a specific cocktail or a spirit that really stands out to you, that wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for, a person of color, anybody like LGBTQ community, anything like that really stands out to you? Like, this is a really cool cocktail. This is a great story. I'd love to hear it.
Oh, there's so many. There's so many great stories. And I loved history in school, just because it was always a good story. Right. It was just like, tell me more about this story. And depending on the teacher you had, that they would just deliver the story. I'm a kid at heart, so I love a fun one. And yes, I do a lot of research. And yes, it does circle around the African-American community, because our history is swiped. Oh, it's just so dark. It's swiped. It's been taken away from us. And we are trying to figure out within our own community where the heck we come from right now, like in this modern time, where we came from. So focusing on the Black community is just sad and exciting. But there's something, Chris, about bitters that makes me really excited, not just because it's our salt and pepper and we love to dab and all of these things, but it's so indigenous to history and to the cocktail world, and what it was made for. That tonic, that healer, is just really exciting to me. And the fact that healers were seen in Africa, because of what we have offered, and the strength and the courage and the lifespan that we had in Africa. Knowing that bitters comes from that part of the world, along with the Caribbean, it makes me happy. And there's a gentleman named Grauman Quasi. He was a healer, a natural botanist from West Africa. Sudan, they're kind of thinking around, this time, and right before the plague, or as the plague is happening, he is discovered. There's some settlers out there looking for someone to help them, and they find Grauman Quasi. Of course, he was enslaved, and he's just this amazing botanist. He's just this great healer that everyone would come to. And Unfortunately, they do kidnap him and take him into another space, but he's allowed to grow things and teach them about things that they can grow and drink. The quasi plant that's in bitters is named after him.
No kidding.
Like crazy. You could Google this guy and you read about him and you're like, wait, what?
That's so cool.
Plant dedicated to you. And in England, there's a whole like plaque of his face, and he's a baddie, and no one really knows about him because, yeah, sure, we know the story. Enslaved blacks, it just blows. But the fact that this man was so talented and knew what to do with certain plants and flowers to get you to drink it, and damn near almost killed the plague. Like some of the settlers that came in, he gave them some of the tonic, and they actually lived like a little bit longer getting back overseas. And I'm just like, what was
That's
this guy?
Remarkable.
They say that it's equivalent to bitters. Now, of course, our bitters is nowhere near that, right. But it's this alcoholic, beautiful, bitter tonic. And I just find it magical that, for one, bitters, I think, is magical. But the fact that this gentleman's name has a whole plant dedicated to him is just incredible.
He definitely has his his thumbprint on history then. That's so
he
cool.
does. I'll send you more details about him. I always want everyone to know about him. He's totally Googleable if you don't believe me. And he's a force to be reckoned with. That's
amazing. What a great story. Thank you very much. That's awesome. So thank you for the bitters in the past there and all your hard work. So I had a feeling you had a good story, and man, you delivered on that one. So thank you. And then I think other than that, like if you could fix any, problem around diversity and inclusion in our industry now, what would it be? What would be the kind of the magic wand that you would use, and what would you solve?
Wow.
I know.
Oh my God. Magic wand. Whew. Okay. Oh, this is going to be so biased, but it's so my feelings. I want to see more Black women in power. I just want to see more Black women as leaders. First and foremost, like, who doesn't love a Black woman? Like, we're fun, we're cool, we're gorgeous. We got a bit of a sass with a lot of loving. Like, it's mommy, auntie love. But we're also very sensitive along with our resilience. And I say that about all women, but I'm going to be biased to my own because we hold something. We have no filters, yet we protect and serve. And I feel if we saw a few more Black women in power, we would see the sensitivity and the care that we want to see in business, along with the firmness and strength that we want to see in this industry. And I think a Black woman holds that, because we love to hug you and hold you, but we're going to do that after we tell you what to do in a nice way. It's a mom's way. And I believe that the Black woman has some of the best mothering skills, hands down. Okay, and second, without being Black women, it would be women in general. We have this beautiful estrogen that does those things. And I want to see, I don't know if this fixes inclusion. I know it doesn't, but just really want to see insurance offered. I just really want to see it be a part of our job. I think that's a part of America, of course. Yeah. But if this industry, especially after seeing what we just saw, and it being the hardest hit industry ever, like we're number one that was hit in these past 2 years. With that being seen, and knowing what we go through, and knowing what we offer, and knowing that it's such a necessity, please offer us the tools so we can be healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more, because without insurance, like I didn't have insurance until I was in my 30s. And every day was like, well, this could be it. I could break something. I could get hit by a bus. I don't know. Roll that dice. And it's so like, if anybody has a medical problem, it's devastating. I mean, it is just, it'll take you out for years financially. So I couldn't agree with you more. Insurance coverage across the board for everybody would be amazing. It would solve so many problems.
It would solve so many problems. And I'm thinking like, if I was an insurance company, I'm Progressive,
right? I
would literally take this space that we're all talking about and say, you know what, we should be the ones to offer health insurance. And they would win so much if they did it. But I am seeing some companies actually put on their checks, instead of saying like 20% for gratuity, the 20% is added to your check that goes to our insurance policy for our staff.
That's
and I
cool.
just started seeing this about a year ago, and it's printed on the check. You cannot deny it. I guess you can, but I don't see anyone saying, I don't want to pay this extra 20%. I mean, the tip, yes, but if that tip is going to make sure that who took care of me is taken care of, we're in there.
That's amazing. That's great.
Yeah, that's a big boss move. That it's not about inclusive, but it is a piece. It's a piece of family. And so whoever's listening, do it. You can do it.
That is such a great move. I love that so much. And it's not like you're saying, it's not inclusion. It's the right thing to do.
Just the right thing to do.
It's just right. It's just good.
It's the right thing to do.
Making sure people can, get up and stay healthy. That's good.
Yeah, just the basics.
Oh, very cool. So I do have one last thing here. And I think one of the things that really kind of opened my eyes up to inclusion in the workforce, especially when it comes to hospitality, is looking at through a customer service lens. And it might sound a little bit weird, but somebody I talked to many years ago really laid this out really well. And they said that, hospitality is making people feel comfortable when they walk in your door, right? You do everything you can to make them feel included and comfortable. When somebody that is, let's say, disadvantaged or comes from, a disadvantaged background or minority or person of color or LGBTQ, whatever that is, if they don't see the same face, history, lenses sitting behind the other side of the bar, they're going to feel uncomfortable walking into that bar.
Yes.
So when we think about inclusivity in the bar community, it really is kind of that first step in hospitality, is making people feel comfortable, make them feel welcome, make them feel safe in that space. And once I thought about it that way, I was like, of course, why wouldn't you do that? Mm-hmm. It's what we really anchor ourselves in, is hospitality. And that has never really been brought into my focus until that moment. So it really changed the way I looked at everything. I always felt like I was very progressive, and, I always kind of try to push myself to be more progressive, but, it really kind of changed everything of how I look at hospitality and this subject. So, but I can't thank you enough for being here. You have spent a lot of time with me today, and I really appreciate it. Is there anything that you're working on that you would love to share?
First, thanks for sharing what you said. Being honest about what you think you think you're doing it, and you're like, am I really doing it? And just to put it out there, all of these new steps are brand new for all of us. Every gender, race, and some businesses are just really realizing what's going on. And so it's not a moment of beating yourself up. It's just a moment of putting yourself in the shoe and then go, okay, how do we fix it? And having the conversation and asking questions first and foremost is very helpful. Instead of assuming, just ask, so things don't look a little too forceful. So thanks for saying that. And whoever's, listening to us, just think about the other. And then if you don't really know what to think, just ask.
Yeah.
And ask sensitively, with lots of sensitivity and understanding and openness. Because again, like I said earlier, these conversations don't happen over cake and ice cream. They kind of gets a little rough. What am I working on? I'm working on self, first and foremost. All the things that we're talking about, because there is a part that I feel responsible to represent all of the things that I am, but also learn how to receive others as well. And so not just standing in the space of my own because I am, but also listening and learning. So I always want to say I'm working on self and trying to learn. I'm always writing. So that does mean that there is a book on the way. There is. I am I'm a collaborator with Miss Toni Tipton Martin as she's writing her third or one of her books that'll be focused on cocktails in African American history. So we'll be archiving all of those great stories and all those cocktails created from names that you probably have never seen before. And that will be in book form. And I have my own book coming out as well. And there's a bar toolkit that I have in the works. I noticed during the pandemic with all the virtual work we were doing, every time I'd ask someone to pull out a tool, they didn't have it, which was okay because we were at home and we were being MacGyvers. But I noticed in the department stores, even those bar kits don't make sense. It's like a bottle opener with a jigger that doesn't even work. Like, it's like, what is 1/4 ounce, 1 ounce? I don't understand why we're making this like that. Like, wait a minute, so I have been in the works of working on like the perfect bar kit that has like your own cutting board and knife specifically for your bar kit, not the onion cutting board and the paring knife that you cook with. So that's something that's like up there on my list. So you can go in Target and just grab a little drinking kit.
Nice.
That's an idea. And I love the camera. Chris, I don't know if you know, actually, I don't love the camera. The camera likes me. So there's maybe you'll see me somewhere. Maybe.
TV, movies?
Maybe.
Just saying.
Maybe.
The camera does love you.
Maybe. But it is a goal of mine. I do feel that the passion that I have in this industry when it comes to education and inclusion and booze, I don't know if a book will be it. So
it's hard to capture all that energy and love and passion on a book.
It's hard to do it in a book. And I'm not going to become a rapper. So I'm going to have to just.
I mean, you could.
I could drop some bars, but I'm not. So I am really pursuing other ways to get this out.
That's cool. Very cool. We'll definitely stay tuned. And then we've referenced your social media a handful of times throughout the episode. What's your favorite social media platform and handle?
Instagram. I love the gram. The drinking coach is where it's at. I love Instagram. It's visual. It's cute. It's funny. I am not a TikToker. I love watching it, but I can't.
Not yet. Be careful.
I do have a chat with a content creator this week, but I'm old, but who knows? Like I said, you'll see me. You'll see me around.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for your time and for the conversation as well. Thank you, Tiffanie.
Thanks so much, Chris. So great hanging out with you.
So once again, thank you to Tiffanie Barriere for her time and her expertise in this area. Talking about diversity and inclusion can be a really hard conversation, but as she pointed out, it doesn't need to be. It could be a really candid conversation as long as everybody approaches it thoughtfully and respectfully. It really does help to elevate all the things that we do behind a craft bar. So once again, I really appreciate her being our guest and providing her insights in this particular subject. We'll provide links to all the resources that she mentioned over at abarabove.com. Head on over there. And just on a word of just kind of something we're working on in the future. 214, the very next episode, we have some pretty big news, so definitely stay tuned for that. But until then, head on over to our Bar Above shop. Take a look at some of the best bar tools in the business. I think so. I'm a little bit biased, but I also help create those tools to answer a lot of the frustrations I had behind the bar. So head on over to abarabove.com and we'll talk to everybody very soon. Cheers.